Welcome back to Pittsburgh Today. This afternoon we are visiting with a gentleman who has produced and directed several films, and I think the thing that is a landmark or distinguishable about George Romero's horror films is that most of them are filmed here in part or entirely in Pittsburgh. How about a nice warm welcome to the director of Creepshow, George Romero. It is good to have you with us.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
I think the first time I had heard about you, and probably not that it was the first thing you'd ever done, but the first time I really heard much about it was Night of the Living Dead, which you filmed here in Pittsburgh, which is a really scary film. And you do a lot of work here. Why is that, George?
Well, I live here. And
that's a good great answer.
There hasn't really been any reason to leave. My partner has built a business around what we do here. And I've worked here since Night of the Living Dead, and since 5 or 6 years before that, we did commercials and industrial films here in Pittsburgh. And Night of the Living Dead was our first theatrical feature film, and it went out and was successful. And after talking to some people in the business, I guess that was just a stroke of luck, is really what it was about.
Oh, really?
And we've been lucky enough to been able to stay. There hasn't been a reason to leave. People are willing to come in here to work, and actors and people are willing to finance productions that we shoot here.
Well, it's interesting as a Pittsburgher, someone who has grown up here, to watch your films, because these are places that we are familiar with. You know, there are areas that you know, like when you did Dawn of the Dead, and you know, you recognize a mall, or even some of the performers you have seen in commercials here or recognized from town.
A lot of the people, yeah, most of the people. There's a principal cast in Creepshow of movie names who came in to do the film, but all the supporting people are Pittsburgh people. And yeah, Dawn of the Dead we shot at Monroeville Mall, almost 100% at Monroeville Mall, having to work at night because we, you know, the cleaning crews come in at 7 in the morning and start cleaning up, and then some of the taverns there don't close until midnight or 1 a.m. So we would have to work between those hours.
Which is a really unusual schedule, I would think.
Yes, it was.
But in your business, I guess you're used to unusual schedules. You work out things the best way you can.
Pretty much. You have, well, most of the time you shoot what the scene calls for. So if it's a night scene, you're shooting at night, and if it's a day scene, you're shooting at day, and there's no telling what the schedule is. The director and the principal production staff are usually the least important people who, their schedules don't matter.
Yeah, you can work them out.
Get the job done. And that's what it's about.
Well, you have gotten the job done in Creepshow, and I understand that it does I think, premiere this evening. Monday opens here in Pittsburgh.
Wednesday.
Wednesday,
yeah,
okay.
Wednesday
here in Pittsburgh. And we're going to take a look, if we can get our camera together. We've got a preview of Creepshow for you.
Great.
Take a look at this.
No, this is going to be an entirely new experience.
I can't believe it. Even here in the audience, they're going, "No!" The reaction is great. How do you? This movie's done in separate stories based around a young child's.
It's a comic book. I guess the real story of the movie is about a comic book, and we go into the comic book, and there are 5 stories in it, and the pages turn. And the drawings turn into live action, and we see 5 stories.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun. Steve writes traditional Gothic horror. This isn't a typical, as many of the horror films recently have been what they call dice and slice, slasher movies, and this isn't like that at all. This is really Gothic, has its root in Gothic traditions, and Steve believes it's much more frightening. When you know that something's behind the door, your imagination makes it a lot more frightening. Once you see the monster, you start dealing with it, and it's sort of resolved. So much of the time in Creepshow is spent saying, don't go in there, don't put your hand in that box, and it's more anticipatory than it is shock and
Sure.
sorrow.
It's one of the things about it. I mean, I like all the variety of the shows, as you say, doing, you know, the 5 different stories. But there are certain parts of it that are really very, very realistic, and those are the things that are most frightening. You know, dealing with a situation that could possibly happen in life.
To you, know. Yeah.
I think it's hard I would like to think that I will never have to deal with 3 million cockroaches coming up out, you know, out of drains and things. But that you know,
possible.
I understand you had a great search to find those bugs.
Well, it wasn't really a search. It's just that, you know, and everyone says, boy, movie makers really go to some extremes to pull off the scenes they need. The fact is, cockroaches are very expensive. The plain old American-styled cockroach costs at a laboratory, bred under laboratory conditions, 50 cents a piece. And we needed, in order to fill that room, about 50,000 of them. And it was actually more economic. We sent entomologists to Trinidad, and they got the real article out of caves down there, and we had to go through government clearances and everything to bring them in and make sure that they were, you know, they weren't infested with any or infected with anything and all that. So it was all done under supervised program. And these guys were big.
They were huge. But when you bring them into this country, cockroaches I thought were afraid of light. I mean,
well, that's part of the trick. They don't take direction well, so you have to sort of trick them into doing things. And the only way we could get them to move one way or move another way would be to have, they'll run from light into darkness. So when we needed them to run that way, we would just make it dark over there and put a lot of light over here, and they don't go running that way. You really can't get them to do very much. They don't have a big repertoire of talents, but they're creepy.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's true. Now, the book itself, the script was written by Steve
King, yeah. Steve and I have become really good friends over this project, and we're going to do another. We're doing one of Steve's novels called The Stand, which was the novel right after The Shining. And that's hopefully will be one of the next projects that we do.
Yeah, and this, I understand, was his acting debut.
This is his acting debut, yeah.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'd like to find out, first of all, because you've become known for doing horror films, why it was horror films in the first place. We'll be back with George Romero. Don't go away.
This time of year, you get a lot of holiday suggestions. Most involve spending money. This is about saving money. You're going to be calling a lot of people long distance. If you use MCI, you can place the same call to the same place and talk the same length of time for a lot less money. Or you can talk a lot longer for the same money. Take a little jingle out of Bell's pockets. Call MCI. You haven't been talking too much, just paying too much.
According to legend, we folk know that Hills is where the toys are.
Oh, hi, it's you. A gal, I see. Oh, we want too. And glamour gals are made for you, from Kenner, too. So many dolls, so glamorous. They even have their own beauty saloon. Salon? Salon! Cuckoo, cuckoo. So long. These glamour gals go back to Hills, because Hills is where the toys are.
At low prices every day.
There are sales, and then there are sales. But this isn't just any sale, it's our biggest Hoover sale of the year. Now at Kaufman, save 20 to 50% on every Hoover product. This deep cleaning upright with full 1-year warranty is just $69.98. Save $49. And this handy Hoover quick broom is just $49.98. Even Hoover's best, the Concept 1, is only $169.98. Save $49. And save on Hoover bags by the carton. The savings are colossal at Kaufman.
There's never been a better time to buy America's favorite dishes, Corelle Dinnerware and Corningware French White Cookware, because they're on sale. Terrific savings on tough, beautiful Corelle dishes just in time for Christmas. Terrific savings on French White Cookware. Versatile, elegant, it's the perfect Corningware gift. So get to your Corning dealer now. America's favorite dishes never had a more appetizing price.
Welcome back to Pittsburgh Today. This afternoon we are visiting with director George Romero, and of course you will know his work, most recently Creepshow, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Night Riders. right in between, yeah. Now, I'm wondering, first of all, you are getting a really wonderful name. You're doing a fine job in horror films, but why horror films?
I've always liked them. I guess as a kid, I used to go to see horror movies a lot, and I read horror comics. And I've always had a lot of fun with the genre. So, and you get typecast in this business, and happily I'm typecast in a genre that I really enjoy. I think it's cathartic. There are enough real things to be afraid of out there today. And so when you get a chance to go and be afraid in a safe environment and experience those fears, there's a kind of catharsis that goes with that. And it's a genre that I really have a lot of fun with. You can be outrageous and bawdy and do characters that are bigger than life, and it's a lot of fun. And it's not nearly as tedious as doing straight drama, and it's probably a little easier than doing comedy. So it's pretty comfortable ground.
Well, even in the work, you've got a lot of light moments.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's not all author or terror and nothing.
No,
but there's a lot of that too.
A lot of that. Well, I think Steve feels, and I feel that neither one of us can keep a straight face when we're doing this stuff. So I guess some of the humor comes through into the product.
We've got some pictures, just some of your publicity pictures, and I understand this is, of course, Stephen King in glasses with you. And
Steve lived here in Pittsburgh the whole time we were shooting. It took us about 4 months, and he lived here the whole time and wrote a book while he was here. His next book is set in Pittsburgh.
Oh, my goodness. And his son was in this film also,
Yeah,
right?
his son is the little boy at the beginning and end that's reading the comic book.
Okay, that's Joe.
Joe King.
Now, this is, of course, is Adrienne Barbeau.
Right, that's Adrienne on the right.
So there were a lot of big-name people in this one in particular.
Yeah, Hal Holbrook, Adrienne, E.G. Marshall. Here's E.G. fighting off some of the guys we were talking about. Fritz Weaver is in it, Vivica Lindfors. Wonderful cast, and they had a great time doing it, I think. I think they really had fun with it.
I think for most of them, at least that was my first experience seeing them in horror film. Or,
Some of them, yeah. Hal and Adrienne, of course, have worked with John Carpenter before. Adrienne is married to John Carpenter, and she's been in a couple of his films. And Hal Holbrook was in The Fog, I think.
Oh, that's right. And she was in the Fog as well.
Yeah.
You know, people are concerned a lot, as you mentioned. There are a lot of things in life to be frightened of, and your feeling is that you can see things in a safe environment. I'm wondering how you react to children. Like, this would not be a film I would recommend necessarily for children, but there will probably be children that will see it.
I think so. It has a restricted rating. I suppose, you know, everyone says it's very hard. You can't put police at the door and keep kids from getting in. I think it should be at the parents' discretion. This is not a slasher film. You know, I do want to emphasize that. And I would certainly have no problem with my son seeing it. The main reason that it has an R is language. And there is a little bit of rough language, particularly in the E.G. Marshall section. He plays a Howard Hughes type millionaire who has a phobia about bugs, and he's a clean freak. And he uses some rough language. And that is the principal reason that this has an R. It's not really a particularly bloody film. It's traumatizing, but I don't know that that's not again, I think that's not an unsafe experience for children, as long as it's Gothic. I was traumatized by The Witch in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I mean, I was traumatized by that as a kid. And I remember seeing Howard Hawks' The Thing. And as long as it has a Gothic root, and it's not speaking about man's blackened soul and we're going to go out and slash each other up in parking lots or in camp or whatever some of those movies are about, I don't have particular problems with it.
Okay. Now, as far as your work with the horror films, you say you took 4 months to do this one in particular here in the city.
Shooting.
Oh, that was just a shooting?
Yeah.
Well, what's the production itself then, George? For
the whole production is about a year's worth of work. We started to shoot this film last July, and there were 2 months of prep before that, so it was really all last summer. And we were finished with it this summer. We were finished with it just in about a year. And I mean, with the hands-on work, doing the final audio tracks and everything else. So it takes about a year. But we make custom pictures in a certain sense. We don't work the way a studio does, where the director is on the set and he shoots the film, and then it gets sent off and somebody does sound effects, and it gets sent off somewhere else and somebody does music. We take the project all the way through and finish it. So it takes us about a year.
That's a year of your life.
Yeah, it is.
That's great. No, the film itself, though, well, Leslie Nielsen is also a part of it.
Leslie Nielsen, I should have mentioned.
And that was the one I was talking about that is very frightening, because it's a lot of the incidents and part of that
is real. Yeah, it's kind of a Shaggy Dog story. The ghosts, the supernatural stuff doesn't come out until the last 30 seconds of the piece. The rest of it is more realistic.
Did you realize that you were part of the bloopers show?
We knew that, yeah. We knew it was going to be. We didn't see it, but I understand it was last night, I think.
Yeah, it was last night. There was a special
couple with
bloopers.
Leslie.
And, yeah, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a horror film used for bloopers for a show.
Leslie had a few good ones, I know. Because we were shooting outdoors with Leslie, and airplanes kept flying over, and he did a scene with a gun. And every time a plane would fly over, he'd open fire on the air. And we got a bunch of that on film.
Who does the casting for your films?
My wife, Christine, and myself did most of it, and we worked with friends of ours who are casting people in Los Angeles to get the principal cast. And then the people here, we screen people and have auditions here in Pittsburgh for all the other roles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I just think it's fantastic, the work that you're doing. And Pittsburghers, of course, really do enjoy it because, again, it can be more frightening for us because we recognize places, or you recognize faces, or it's just,
yeah,
you know, it's something that we really like to see here in town.
Well, we're happy, very happy to be here. We're very happy to be doing it here. I'm a great believer in the regionalization of this whole industry. Movies that are being made in Hollywood today are really shooting for the moon, you know, and unless it makes $100 million, it's not really interesting to the financial community out there. And we're great believers in one way of not only cutting costs, but making cost-efficient films and making entertainment films again, is to regionalize the industry, and that's kind of what we've been waving the banner, and hopefully we can make a few more pictures here and maybe make a little bit of a move in that direction.
Sure. Well, we hope that you do continue that way, and thanks so much. Again, folks, Creepshow is, you have an opportunity to see it, we think, beginning Wednesday, and you will have there'll be a few weeks run here in town, and it's something you won't want to miss. And I think you'll recognize a lot of the places and faces as part of Creepshow and enjoy the story. Again, George Romero, thanks so much for joining us on Pittsburgh Today.
It's a pleasure.
We're going to take a break, and when we return, we're going to be talking about alcoholic doctors and how they are being treated and the work that's being done at St. Francis Hospital. Don't go away.